Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest business chat with me, Glenys Chatterley from EBN, which stands for Effective Business Network. Today, I've got with me one of my newest members. It's Joanne. Now, I'm going to say this wrong, but we'll have a go at it. Kondabeka. How did I do?
You got it right, Glenn. You got it right.
Okay, the achievement of the day. And she's from the Chichester District Food Bank. Chichester is one of our latest groups. As I say, Joanne is one of our latest members. And so as a charity, I thought it'd be interesting to have a conversation with her about, well, who knows where this is going to go. So welcome to Business Chat, Joanne.
Welcome to you too. And thank you for inviting me to this.
So tell me a little bit about how you got, what you're doing, what you're actually doing at the minute.
So I'm the chief exec of Chichester District Food Bank, and we provide emergency food parcels for people facing food poverty and have hit a sort of an economic crisis and they can't afford food.
So do people come as a one-off? Are they regulars? How does it work?
So we're part of a national organisation called the Trussell Trust. We're a charity in our own right, but we're a charitable franchise. So we follow the Trussell Trust model, and the Trussell Trust model is all about helping people out of their crisis. So we're feeding people that are in crisis and then try to support them out of their crisis. It's about crisis, not dependency. So there are a limit to the number of food parcels somebody can have. And although there's times when they do have to have more, but we work with about 192 agencies at the moment that hold our food vouchers. So we're looking at social services, churches, hospital, mental health charities, etc. And they know their clients. So they know when they're struggling, and while they're trying to help them out of their situation, there are times when they need more vouchers than we usually give out, and so there are times when we work with those agencies. So yes, we'll give them a few more food parcels just to help them. So but it is about crisis rather than dependency.
That's a really good point. So not that the others weren't. So tell me how you got from wherever you started to where you are now.
Okay, so Chichester District Food Bank came out of the church that my husband and I were actually leading. I was a teacher at the time, and on my one day a week, I offered my services to the church to be their kind of community worker, because we really wanted to help the community in practical ways. And so I started to explore what was needed in our community, and it soon became apparent that actually there was a lot of people that needed food in a crisis. So I contacted the Trussell Trust because another local leader had told me about them as an organisation, and they told me about how to kind of start a food bank. And so that's how it actually started. So it started from really a kind of a place where we just wanted to really help our community.
And I'm guessing, so you're saying about you're in Chichester and there's a need. My impression of Chichester is that it's quite an affluent area. So it's interesting that there is need within that environment, within that community.
There's a lot of hidden poverty within Chichester because it is seen as an affluent area. People kind of miss those pockets of social housing where there is a lot of poverty. Also, a lot of Chichester district is actually rural. So I think it's 61% is actually rural, and there's a lot of rural poverty. In fact, research has been shown that actually you need about £72 extra per week to be able to use transport to get to school, to doctors, to supermarkets. So actually, if you're already on the minimum wage, or the living wage as they call it now, you may not actually have that extra.
Yeah,
so there is a lot of rural poverty as well as poverty within the city itself.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I think it's things that most of us don't think about. We see the visible poverty, obviously, in some places, but the invisible poverty is harder to identify. So tell me, you said you were a teacher. What did you teach, and why did you teach that?
Well, I'm an RE teacher, trained RE teacher in a senior school. So obviously I have a faith, so my faith drives everything I do.
Right.
It was a natural subject to go into, was to teach religious education, and to be able to inspire young people to think about faith, but also to think about ethical issues too, because RE teaching nowadays is about as much about ethics and about helping people to discover what they think about certain subjects and their views. But it's also about understanding people as well. If you're employing somebody who's a Muslim or a Hindu or somebody of a different faith, you need to be able to understand what their practices, what they believe in, because actually it may affect the way that they work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And so it's really important to be able to understand people. So it's interesting that a lot of people go, oh, RE, why do you need to do RE? But actually it's a really vital subject to be able to understand people.
Yeah, I think I used to, when I was chair of governors at a local school, I used to be the link governor for religious education. And the reality was that some of it was nothing to do with what people would think of as religion. There was a whole lot of things stuffed in the funnel, and then slowly it was filtered down. But it included people of faith or ideas of faith and ideas of people with no faith, and it wasn't that they haven't happened upon a faith, it was that they'd made a decision that they didn't have a faith. And I think it's the moral and ethical issues that we all face that are important, irrespective of whether you put it under any label. But I think that for me, that was the interesting thing about it, was to see how children, because it was juniors, how they developed and had their thoughts about it, and would ask questions that you'd think, oh God, yeah, I've never thought of that. That's a good one. And an 8-year-old doing it, you think, oh, okay, yeah, that's an interesting perspective on life. So yeah, that's good. So
and I was going to say, it's interesting that actually food banks are in the curriculum now for RE GCSE, because when you're looking at poverty and the ethical issues around that, actually it's one of the examples they show about how people of faith actually help those that are in poverty. So it's quite interesting. So they actually, the two link.
Yeah, absolutely. So you, in a way, you were, because you come to our Digital group, which is a business group, but you are a business. Any charity is a business. That what you do with what you make is a different thing. However, you actually are a business. So tell me, when you were setting up all of this, what advice do you wish somebody had given you?
Oh wow. I thought you were going to ask me the question about actually what advice would I give, but about
that'd do. Yeah, that would do.
And actually I think it links back to something I've already said about that. Actually you need to do your research. And I think it's really, really important, even for setting up a charity. Actually, is this charity needed? Is this business needed? Is there a hole in the market? And when we're setting it up, what would those that we class as stakeholders, what do they say about it? what ideas have they got.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we did when I was looking at what the community needed, was that I did contact different stakeholders, and it soon became apparent that actually, yes, a food bank was definitely needed. And I even had social services discover that I was doing this kind of research, and actually phoned me at home and said, we're desperate. At the moment, we've got nowhere to send our families when they've got no food, and we're desperate. So as I started to do research, I found out, yes, there is a need, but I also found out actually what was the best way to set it up. So what times to set it up. So we originally were going to do Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 2 till 4. But actually talking to one of our stakeholders, they actually said, no, on Friday, people come to us late. So can you, if you open between 4 and 6, that would help people better. And actually, it's really true. We have a lot of last minute people come on a Friday, Friday at that time to receive a food parcel. I think sometimes people are so ashamed that they wait to the last minute.
Yes.
But they don't want to go a weekend without food, especially if they've got children.
Yes.
So we actually really listened to the community, listened to the stakeholders, and actually it's really vital you do your research right at the beginning and see actually, is there a hole in the market, and how do we actually then build in our business processes? What do we do to set it up and so it meets those needs?
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I know that I've met people along my journey in business where I've thought, what are you going to do with that? Who would buy that? Now, some people, they had a very niche product, but they knew what the market was for that niche product, and they were very successful, very, very successful. But I also met, and I'm thinking particularly of one person who had this niche product, and I thought, I can't think of anybody who would want that. And I can't think of anybody of my friends who would buy that. And I wouldn't be interested in it. And I said to him, so who's going to buy this? What's your research shown? And he said, oh, I've not done any research. I just developed this and thought this is a good idea. So I thought I'd start selling it. Suffice to say, I met him sort of on and off over 3 years. He never set up a business. He never developed it. And he could be, even as we speak, ready to launch it. And it might be a great success, but he'd not done any research. And I would say that what you were talking about is what I would call networking. It's about asking people who know more about that subject than you do, how they would do it, how they can help, all of that. And it is finding out from them when it works, because I can remember one time somebody I know very well, and they were deciding thought they might set up another business networking company. And I think, bring it on. We're not the only networking, and bring it on. If people prefer them to us, then I need to perhaps up my game, or maybe not. And she said to me, when should I do it? When should I have the group? And I said, what suits you? And she said, about 10 till 12. And I said, in that case, open 10 till 12, because you will then attract people like you who that suits. I said, I do breakfast networking in my groups because breakfast suits me. I mean, the breakfast meal suits me, but any meal suits me. But it's that thing about I'm best in the mornings. If somebody does networking at like 7 o'clock at night, I'm probably in my gym jams, so it's probably not going to work so well. But yeah, it's but that's great, because it's that thing about, as I said before, charities are businesses. You have to go through the same processes and learn the same thing and make the same mistakes, but less of them because you've been out there and asked people. So you've talked about if somebody were looking to support a charity, your charity, how could, let's talk about your charity in that way. So if they wanted to support you, how could they do it? Give me 3 ways that they could do that, particularly if they didn't live in Chichester.
Okay, so generally I'm going to say if anybody wants to support a charity, ask them what they want. Don't assume. Never assume you know what they want, because it's very interesting that one of the things that we always need is food, because we give food out and we rely on people giving us food donations. But it is interesting that not everybody goes to our website and looks at what we need, and sometimes they give us what they think. So food is one thing that they can help us with. Another thing is kind of fundraising for us, or choosing to set up a direct debit, or so funding. Charities are non-profit a lot of the time, unless you do have a charity shop or whatever, so we're non-profit, so we rely on the community funding us. And as we're growing, unfortunately, that is something that we rely on more and more of, because we're having to extend our staff. We started with me on 1 day a week, and we now have 4 members of staff, but 211 volunteers, I will add. So the other way is actually volunteering. So again, looking at our website, and when we need a volunteer for something, is to look and see, do you have the skills to be able to do that role? And there are many different roles within the food bank. So actually it's also about bringing your expertise. If you've got some expertise, actually, where can that fit in? And I know right at the beginning of when we started the food bank, I set up a project team, me and probably about 8 other volunteers, but all those volunteers had expertise in areas I didn't. And so that's another tip, is always having a team of people that with the expertise that you don't have. And the food bank is only here today because of those volunteers, but also many others that have brought their expertise and helped me to be able to grow the food bank. Because we actually started in Chichester, but we actually became very aware very soon that actually we needed to serve Chichester district. So then we had to set up other food bank centres in Chichester district. And I definitely relied on the expertise, and still do, of people in those areas.
Yeah, I think that's again for me, and I always bring it always back to networking in my head. It's about, I always talk to people, and I know I've done it on some of these business chats. It's about finding people to surround you that have skills that you don't have and that you don't want to acquire.
Yes.
I never want to qualify as an accountant. I have to have a good accountant. So it's all of that stuff that you need around you. So you're really obviously really busy in all sorts of things. Tell us a little bit about what you do in your spare time. And I love this bit, because I get people telling me stuff that I go, really? Okay. So tell me what you do.
So obviously I am an active member of a part of a church, so that's very important to me. But one of the other things that I'm really passionate about is keeping fit. So I do go to the gym. I did have a personal trainer at one stage, but I no longer have them. I think the pandemic put an end to that. But I also love walking. So I love doing like between 5 to 10 miles walks in the countryside. In May, I actually walked the Sussex border path, which was 150 miles. So I did that in a week. So that was amazing. And at the moment, I am planning to walk the Monarch's Way, which is 625 miles. I'm not going to do that all in one go, because I don't think I could do that.
You
and I
might have
haven't
a
got the
cup of
time.
tea somewhere in all of that, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I haven't got the time to do 625 miles, but I'm going to break it down over probably a year or a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. So I'm very passionate about my walking. But the one thing is, if I ever take you walking, is that we'll always get lost.
Okay.
And
So
yeah,
a 5 mile journey might end up in a 10 mile just because
yeah,
part of the adventure. Yes.
part of the adventure, because I am somebody who's a risk taker, so
Yeah.
hence I've started a charity. And but I also I really do believe in kind of taking those risks and just going for it. And
Yeah.
I'm an adventurer, so
Yeah.
actually part of the adventure is definitely getting lost and
Yeah.
finding your way back.
Yes, I once went out. One of my beloveds, one of his brother-in-laws, who before I knew him really at all, and we went for a walk. The four of us went for a walk, and I wasn't togged up for a walk. I was togged up for perhaps lunch in the pub, with flat shoes, but not walking shoes. Anyway, he said very confidently, "Oh, I think we go over here." So I thought, well, he seems to know what he's doing. So I followed him. Well, let me just say that the shoes had to go in the bin. It took at least a couple of hours of showering to get the mud off me. And I've never let him forget it. And that was probably over 30 years ago. And anytime he says, I'm not sure, I go, no, let's look at a map. You know, we can do technology now, but yes. So that's fantastic. I mean, yeah, when we sat together, I felt that there was an affinity with us, and that's, I think, about. I'm excited by life, and I think you should take risks, and you should do things that are outside your comfort zone. I know that people who know me well, my beloved is not necessarily, well, he's not a risk taker.
No, neither
However,
mine.
I've made him into a bit of a risk taker, and he did once famously say, I said, well, you weren't really in your comfort zone, were you? And he said, in my comfort zone? I couldn't have seen my comfort zone if you'd have given me binoculars.
Yeah,
He was still alive.
I
Yeah.
took my husband out on a walk. He's not a walker, and he's not a risk taker. And we got really, really lost. In fact, we just couldn't find the car. And then suddenly along came a sort of like a van kind of minibus. It was a minibus, and they stopped and they said, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Kondabeka." And it turned out it was a parent of somebody, I actually taught most of their children, and they had their children in the back. And they said, "Oh, where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, we can't find our car." And they said, "Oh, you're about 3 miles out." And they said, "Oh, we'll give you a lift." So they took us back to our car. And I said to my husband, "See, we took a risk, but actually an answer came in the form of somebody I knew." And so I said, it's worth taking a risk, because there's always somebody who will come along on the journey with you.
Yeah. And I think you just think, this has been fun. I mean, as long as it doesn't kill you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are some things I wouldn't do again that I've done, and I thought, what were you thinking? However, I can put them down that I've done them, so that's okay. So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for all the information and everything. It's just been fascinating. So I say goodbye to the audience, and then I'll do my last bit. So thank you, Joanne.
And thank you. And thank you to the audience for listening. And I'm just going to advise you, take a risk, be adventurous, and don't worry if you fail, because actually failure actually always leads to success in the end.
Absolutely. I will add that failure is not the falling down, it's the staying down. That's what failure is. So for the ones of you who are watching, please do the usual, which is watch this to the end, because we don't want to mess with the algorithms. Then please subscribe to my channel, comment, like, and tell your friends. And then if you want some more, perhaps come back next week. Next week, it'll be me on my own. And if you don't turn up, I'm talking to myself. So for now, thank you. and it's been great spending some time with you on this business chat.
Thank you.